This is Two Girls, No Rules.
No, it's not a porn, it's just a podcast.
We're your hosts, Christina
and Charlotte.
Today we're talking to our good friend Jeremy, who's going to share the secrets of meditation. We're going to ask the question, what is consciousness? Why do we exist? What is life? What is meditation? And what are its benefits? So stick around because it's gonna be a wild ride.
All right, so today we are chatting with our good friend Jeremy Rosenhart. Just to give you a bit of a background about him, he is a writer and a marketing specialist, a game designer and all-around game enthusiast, a former student of philosophy, as well as a practitioner of Vipassana meditation. Right. Welcome, Jeremy. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Hey, thanks.
So when I think about meditation and the people in my life that I know who practice meditation, you are really the first person that comes to mind. I remember being at Shambhala Music Festival in 2016, and we were all down by the river, and everyone is drinking and smoking and dancing, and there's music playing and lights and all sorts of stimulation and activity going on all around us. And I must have been floating on the river, and I looked up, and just a short distance away, up on the rocks, I saw you sitting there meditating in a very traditional meditation pose, legs crossed, hands on knees, eyes closed, back straight. And I remember how incredible it was that while all this was going on around you, while everyone else was seeking stimulation externally, you chose to go inward in that moment to cultivate some peace, to calm your mind, and not let the fact that you were in those surroundings stop you from engaging in your practice. And that's always really stuck with me, and I find that really admirable. So I would love if you could just tell us a bit about your journey with meditation, why you started, and specifically what Vipassana, sorry, I know I'm saying that
It's
wrong. Vipassana meditation is.
Cool, yeah. Well, so first of all, thanks for that memory, because I barely even...
You're welcome.
I wouldn't have put that one together myself. Yeah, okay, yeah, now I remember that.
Yeah, you remember?
Yeah, all the sittings kind of blend together after a while. Yeah. So I started meditating in 2015. At the time, I was trying to develop something of a practice, and it was just like a lot of people, and I have lots of conversations with people about this because there's that the common barriers that people have to like developing a practice, like I just can't focus, or like I sit down and I feel like I'm just thinking the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
It's a practice.
That's what your practice is at the start a lot of the time. So, anyways, I was going through a lot of that, and I was trying to do 10, 20 minutes a day and just having kind of a hard time with it. And I don't know, I had heard about Vipassana, the different Vipassana centers that are around Canada and around the world previously, 3 years prior, and I just never really had the impetus, I guess, or the courage to go until this point in time when I was trying to dip my toes a little bit. I was just trying to get into it, and I was having so much trouble. It was, I guess, kind of frustrating me that my monkey mind was not calm enough for me to sit and observe breath for, more than 2 seconds at a time. So I just decided to go to boot camp, meditation boot camp, which is a 10-day silent meditation course in which you're just meditating pretty much all day, 10 hours a day for 10 days. So roughly that anyways.
How long do you sit in meditation for
at a time?
At a time, yeah.
Usually an hour. Yeah.
And then you'll take a break and then you'll go back to it.
Yeah.
But in total, it's about 10 hours a day of meditation.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, my first course I was definitely not doing 10 hours a day. It was a real struggle for me. Mm-hmm. So I was...
just
a lot. Yeah, well, just a lot of stuff was coming up for me. I mean, I wasn't just sitting there. I had to get up and go for walks. So there's 3 group sittings a day you have to be in the hall for, and those were the really hard ones, right? Because it's I can't move from this spot and whatever. So there's those 3 hours a day, and then the rest of the time you can kind of there's what do they call open meditation periods, I guess, where you're either in your room or in the hall, or just kind of some people will put a chair in the hallway just to be somewhere different.
Wow. And there's, sorry to interrupt you, there's no technology there, right?
You
just
can't have your phone.
To be present.
No phones, no writing, no. It's funny, people are so desperate for distractions.
Yeah.
It's hilarious the things that people will do sometimes, that you find little shrines built out on there's little walking trails and stuff like that, right? And people and they ask you not to at the beginning of the course because they know people are going to do it.
Yeah.
And they still friggin' do it.
So do you think why do we do that? Why do we need to distract ourselves? What is that?
Why is it so
hard?
It's
just hard. There's a lot of stuff inside, and
what are we running away from? What came up for you during the process?
Well, put in the simplest terms, possible that, that I think that they would, I don't know if I'm qualified to be like talking about Vipassana.
I mean, from your own
like,
personal experience, you've done it a lot, right?
Yeah, I have done it a fair bit. I mean, like, it's craving and aversion. Really, that's like every misery that we experience as human beings, more or less. At least in this practice, they would say that it can be reduced to one of those two.
So the desire to have certain things, or I don't want to feel this.
Yeah,
okay.
one becomes associated with something that they don't want, and that is a misery, or one becomes disassociated with something that they do want, and that is a misery. And largely it has to do with your sensations. So there's this whole sort of flow of the mind that they talk about on these courses, and I'll just cover this briefly because it's I find it to be like one of the most interesting aspects of it. It's like one of the most like kind of like scientific things about it, and it's definitely very difficult to get to the level of awareness and observation where you can experience this for yourself. But so this practice Vipassana, this is like sort of what the Buddha taught.
Okay.
Right? This is a practice that Buddha was trying to get people to do. He wasn't trying to get people to like build shrines of him and worship Buddha.
It's pretty egoic.
Yeah, he was trying to get people to like liberate themselves through the process of observe. Basically, it's awareness and equanimity is all it is. You're aware of what's going on inside of yourself, and not just like, because people sometimes I think of meditation as like, oh, you're just aware of whatever.
Yeah.
But you're not necessarily going to be aware of everything if you're just like letting your mind kind of do whatever.
And why things are coming up, right?
And you have to start focusing on things that you're not familiar with, I think.
Or that are uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, so just as an example, as the sort of the main part of the practice that they have that they do in Vipassana centers is to focus on sensation. So that's like an aspect of your experience that most people are not really that much in touch with. Like if you just sit now and like, okay, I'm just meditating, I'm just observing whatever. Probably you're just going to be observing your thoughts. Mostly, you're going to be like watching thoughts come and go. You might get some emotional awareness and that kind of thing. It depends on the person. Some people, I guess, are pretty in tune, but I don't think that you would get to the same level of depth that you can by doing these body scans that they do on these courses.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, when you recommended me to do that meditation, I was like, oh, sure, yeah, I'll get back into meditation, whatever. Like, I've been meditating for years, like, whatever. And I was struggling with that digestive issue, so-called chronic issue. And I started practicing again, and I found it really difficult at first. I was really uncomfortable in the practice you sent me, where you're just scanning your body. You first start looking at your toe and just breathing into your toe, and I was so uncomfortable. My body was like shaking. I was like, God, I just want to leave. I want to get out of my body. But then I just kind of breathed through it, and I started to get really calm and so aware of myself that I started to feel like really psychedelic, and like I was like almost transcending my body, or like so aware that I was like out of my body. And
I also did that body scan meditation. I've been doing it a lot actually just the past week, and I'm finding it very difficult to shut down my thoughts. Like I'm constantly realizing that I'm not focusing on the sensations in my body, and I'm thinking about things. I'm like, okay, I have to go back to the spot and focus again. But I definitely felt like it put me in a trance state. It really like put me into this very relaxed state, and I fell asleep quite often doing it.
So one thing I just in response to both of those comments that I'd like to mention just briefly is that like at least in Vipassana, at least in mindfulness practice, the goal isn't to get to a trance state or any specific. You're not trying to create like a specific type of experience. Really, the idea is just to develop an awareness of like whatever, like literally whatever is happening. With a focus on sensations. The reason for the sensations. So again, just coming back to the point about the sort of flow of mind. There are these four aspects, or these four components of the mind. There's consciousness, perception, sensation, and reaction. They discuss it in Pali terms, like the language spoken by the Buddha on the courses, but I can't remember all the Pali words for the different things. I just remember this. So consciousness is the mind becomes aware of something through one of the sense doors. Like mind consciousness is your thoughts. eye consciousness, ear consciousness.
The senses,
The senses, yeah. So the six sense doors, you become consciously aware of something. Something happens. Then the second part of the flow of the mind is perception, which is you sort of give an evaluation of that thing. Right, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, is the most basic kind of evaluation. And then there will be a sensation somewhere on your body. This is the part that most people are missing. So like if there's a sound that happens, and you're oftentimes your mind is going straight from like whatever it is that's happening externally to the like that this thing is bad and craving or this thing is good and craving this thing is bad aversion. That's because it happens so fast. So you don't necessarily realize that like, okay, so this sound happened, but then what happened was my mind evaluated that it doesn't like this loud sound, and then what happened was there was an unpleasant sensation somewhere in my body, and then I reacted to that sensation. I wanted that sensation to go away. There's like a lack of internal awareness of this whole process that goes on. So then the last step is reaction. That actually I do know the Pali word for it. It's called sankharas. It's a lot of talk about sankharas.
So is one of the goals of meditation to be less reactionary and just be aware of awareness, like to just be able to kind of stand and just witness without getting tossed around by your emotions? And
that is.
For me, that's what my goal is.
that's the whole thing, really. I mean,
yay!
And it's not always going to be like this peaceful thing, Like there are very experienced practitioners that I've spent time with that talk about like sometimes you just have a day where you can't even get your mind focused on sensations. Like you try to come back to the body, you try to come back to the breath, and you're gone. And you just like, okay, well, this is what's happening in this moment. Like if you start reacting to that, then like guess what? Like you're actually reacting to a reaction. You're reacting. There is a sensation that's caused by your evaluation. So like essentially what I'm starting to realize, I think, is that any sort of evaluation of your practice is not helpful.
Right.
Anytime you catch your mind evaluating your practice,
like how good you are at meditating.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't do anything for you. Yeah. Okay. That is a sankhara. I think. Anyways, that's been my experience lately. Has been like every time when I'm sitting a course, when I'm at the meditation center, or even just in my daily practice, whenever if I find that my mind has gone to this place of like, how is my meditation, like how is this, like immediately I'm caught up in this world of reactions to all those things. I expect and want my meditation practice to be a certain way and to not be another certain way. And so if things happen that I don't like, and they may not even be like bad per se, like I don't know, the mind is weird in its preferences. It's tricky, sometimes. Yeah. But,
I feel like for me, meditation really helps me step out of my mind and get back into my body. And I think the reason why we get so uncomfortable during meditation is because we start to feel things we've been neglecting, like certain traumas. Even if we've had difficulties in the past, those traumas from the past that we keep reliving over and over, they're in our present body. And so when we meditate, we can actually go into the body and see where those traumas are, and it just helps to kind of release them. So people, when they start meditating, they're like, well, it's too hard. It doesn't feel good. But I think that's a part of the process, right? Things come up, and how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with all this stuff coming up? You just breathe.
When you're sitting for 10 hours a day.
Like, what's the hardest?
Sometimes you have to breathe through it.
Like,
There are different like skillful ways that you can work with the technique. And again, like I feel like I'm answering questions that an AT should probably answer, but just on my own experience.
No rules.
It's also you have a lot of experience with this.
I don't know, like define a lot. I know some people that have sat like 10, 20 different long courses.
It doesn't invalidate your own experience though, right?
Sure.
You're human. How many lifetimes have you lived to get here?
I suppose that's
Christ, like we're from another planet. So that's just my ego talking.
So I mean, like there's a bunch of different ways to like work skillfully with difficult situations. Sometimes like you have to come back to your breath. If your mind is too agitated and you can't work with sensations and continue to move through the body and stay focused, is you're just like getting distracted or whatever. Sometimes you do that. Another thing that you can do is just focus on the extremities. They say that, and anyways, I've heard it a lot, that like, for me, it actually hasn't really been that helpful, because the point of the focusing on your extremities is the idea is that your sensations generally in your hands and feet are pretty like neutral, whereas for me they're not. Usually I have a lot of feelings of tension and pain.
Weird.
I usually, when I've been doing this body scan, I've been noticing a lot of tingling and in my toes and my fingers.
For me, it's really easy to be aware.
It's very easy for me to be aware. I've
heard, it's very easy to be aware of. I've also heard some people talk about, and I don't know, I can't speak to the legitimacy of this at all, really, but I've heard people say that, these are parts of your body where, like, it's sort of energy release.
That's kind of what it feels like, almost.
Oh,
is energy kind of going to the spots,
That's where
but largely what you do, like, you're facing, like, a lot of shit, is you just face it. My first course was, like, one of the most difficult things that I've ever been through in my entire life. And I've got a blog that I wrote about it, and I haven't read it in a long time.
It's like too dark.
Probably terrible. It's not like super dark. It's just like I don't know what the quality of the writing anymore. Anyways, like in that I talk about like my first 10-day experience, which was very intense. I was facing, I think a lot of the anxiety that I had growing up, as a kid and stuff like that. Like I was basically experiencing things that I hadn't experienced since I was a kid. And like things that when I was a kid, I would like wake up in the middle of the night after having like a terrible nightmare, or like, I'm on a train and like we get crushed by a landslide or something. Like this kind of shit would happen to me a lot when I was a kid.
Wow.
I'd wake up and my stomach would hurt and I'd feel really anxious and my heart would be pounding and all that. So anyways, I'd go into sittings and like these physical sensations were coming up.
That's the trauma, yeah.
And the anxiety was also coming up, and I'd feel really like, emotionally uncomfortable for a number of the sits, like a few days, anyways. By the time I got to like day 7, I think, and this is part of why like the day people ask about this, the 10-day thing is like is very important. 10 days, I think, is like probably the minimum amount of time, and even in 10 days, some people don't necessarily have like enough of a
breakthrough.
Yeah, not a breakthrough. He's not really trying to get a breakthrough. It's just like enough of an experience of like here. Yeah, it's like you have to like get to the point where you can kind of see like, okay, now I sort of understand what's happening here. Like how this, so the process, the idea of this process of Vipassana meditation, it's a process of liberation whereby through developing equanimity to your sensations, the reacting part of the mind, which most of us are constantly feeding all the time unconsciously, like we're just like letting the reactions get stronger and stronger and whatever. If you just become aware of your sensations and don't react to them, then the old reactive habit patterns, the old stock of your sankharas, of your reactions, start to emerge. They come up on the surface, and that's what makes all this uncomfortable stuff happen. And you'll be having like all these all these aversions and sometimes all these cravings. Some people will like they'll have nothing but like pleasant sensations. And all this craving, all this like, or passion or whatever, like sexual passion, just like, just like kind of pouring out of them, like, oh my God, or pain.
Addicted to pain sometimes.
Yeah, it can be anything. It can be anything, honestly. And so that stuff comes up, and the idea is that you're supposed to just keep watching, don't get attached, don't push away, and
just observe.
And just observe. And that old stock of sankharas will slowly just burn off. It's like a candle. You watch the candle. Yeah. You're just watching the candle burn. And so on this first course that I had this really sort of, I guess, life-changing, but at the very least a profound experience where I was having all this anxiety, headaches, and like my stomach was hurting, and like just all this discomfort, all this like, I don't, my basically my mind and my body were like kind of like, I don't want to be here. Like going through all this, observing this, and like, like the old habit pattern of the mind is wanting to just like get away from it and find a distraction and like all that kind of stuff. But you just stay with it, stay as calm as you can. And so, by like I said, by about the 7th day, I think I was starting to have sittings where the physical sensations were still there, like of the anxiety that I had when I was a kid and all this stuff. And it was like, like it's kind of crazy even just going through that, like, oh man, I forgot about that. But the mind was calm and still, so that I'd be having these like my heart might be beating pretty hard and my stomach just feels a little bit queasy or whatever, but I'm just like so calm, just so like, oh, okay, so like the anxiety was actually just like the reacting, it's just the mental part, and that's gone. And now, like, so this other stuff. So, because I think like, growing up and whatever, like, I was just like, whenever I had this stomach pain or butterflies, like, I've always been kind of like a scared to get up in front of the class kind of kid.
Yeah, same.
And whenever I've done something like that, like I call that sensation my anxiety.
Right.
I wake up at night after a nightmare and I'm feeling sick and whatever, and like I would call that feeling, that physical feeling, that, oh, this is my anxiety. But it wasn't. The anxiety, the mental part of it, or like at least there's different components.
Yeah.
So there was this thing where I was able to separate from the physical experience of those things and just not really be anxious. And then eventually those went away as well. So like all these sensations and all the emotions that it's really, so the focus of Vipassana meditation is the Pali word anicca is kind of like what they would describe, I think, as the center principle. So anicca is impermanence, it's change. Everything is changing. Everything is changing all the time. And the idea is to learn not to get attached to things
To anything.
because things are, there's no point. But we don't know that. Like it's easy to like intellectually just say like, oh well, you know, the flow of the river is constant. You know, like every moment that you're looking at a river, it's a new body of water, always anew. You know, like when it comes to a human being, when it comes to your own experience, it's much harder even intellectually to say like, how do you you know, explain or understand that like you are that same flow, constantly dying and being rebirthed anew every moment. You know, like
it's freeing though if you really embody that. Like if you really step into that. That's like
that's why people become monks.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to put it out there though that it is. I feel like meditation is freeing. Like it's the ultimate thing. Because if you don't look inside yourself and you're just kind of going about your life, those traumas are going to come up externally. For me personally, I've been attracted to my own pain in other people, and I've created all this karma, which has sent me back to feeling the pain. So why not just feel the pain and just feel it and heal instead of, you know, involving all these other people and just being in this perpetual loop of pain and karma, and like, you know what I mean? Like you're just in that cycle eternally, like blaming other people for the pain that's just inside of you. So I feel like meditation is the answer to healing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
we play out our traumas through our relationships with other people rather than just healing ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, like, and if you have something inside of you that is, you know, crying out for your attention, people get sick, people fall into dis-ease, they go to the doctor looks at the symptoms, I'm just complaining about the medical system, and they're like, well, you need some pharmaceuticals. That's gonna make us money. And so those medications take you farther away from the pain that you need to feel, take you farther away from your body, and maybe you're still in so much pain, so you numb yourself with alcohol or drugs. So you're just getting farther and farther and farther away, when in fact, if you just looked inside, you'd see that your pain is just like a little child that just wants your attention. Yeah. And obviously that takes work to heal it still, but I feel like the medical system's really backwards. Like,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
We could talk about that for hours too.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
agreed across the board.
Maybe in a bit, but I do want to read something that's quite interesting about the scientific benefits of meditation.
Sure.
So meditation is shown to thicken the prefrontal cortex. This brain center manages higher order brain function, like increased awareness, concentration, and decision making. Changes in the brain show with meditation higher order functions become stronger while lower order brain activities decrease. And it also decreases your attachment to the me center, so you feel less egotistical. And when things happen, they're not happening to you. Everything's not as personal. Right. You know what I mean? Like I find that a lot. Like I feel less, the world's not out to get me. Things are just happening. You know what I mean?
So it's saying that this prefrontal cortex part of the brain thickens? What does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
I guess it means that it's like, it's good to be thick-headed.
This part of the brain is where our higher order functioning comes from. Yeah. So I guess it just helps.
That's very interesting. I wonder what exactly is going on there.
Well, I have some more information. So meditation increases serotonin. This is the feel-good chemical. Cortisol decreases stress hormone. DHEA, it boosts levels of this longevity hormone. GABA improves the calming effect of this major inhibitory transmitter in your nervous system. Endorphins, so that natural high kind of feeling. Growth hormone, so you stay younger, you actually like live longer, you look more youthful. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, so you feel more calm. And I think it puts you in the alpha state, so you get relaxed, right?
It sounds like it's really the secret to longevity and health. That nobody's, that we're not, we should be teaching it.
Yeah.
Right?
We should
Get your Botox. Or you can just meditate.
Well, the thing is meditation is free.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So why would they push it?
So
it doesn't really help
make
anybody make money.
No.
It doesn't perpetuate the misery that is,
That's probably
that is constantly just self-perpetuating in everything in our society, right? It's the people who are trying to make money on making other people miserable by showing them images of they're miserable too, right? It's if you're trying to get people to buy Botox, because you just want more money. Maybe you're doing Botox as well because you want to look the same way that these other people do. But it's what? So what are you doing though?
Yeah.
Have you stopped for five? Forgive my language, but five fucking minutes?
Yeah.
To just think about why.
And what is
why
it making you
this?
actually beautiful? Is that sure?
Why does it even
feel
matter?
Confident, but
Well, that's the ultimate question, right? Is why does it matter? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But they
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm asking.
But
why
they want
why
people to
does it
think
matter?
that it matters.
Yeah, well, because it's
Right?
just that's how they make their money, and and to them it matters. And then if they make more money, then they can do all these things to make themselves look good and feel good and things, stuff. The thing about stuff, man.
okay. So now I'm gonna
I will
ask.
say, Jeremy, I think you look very young. I think you have great skin. So if
People say
meditation must
that.
be working for you.
I get that a lot.
It
Actually.
anti-ages you. When I meditate, I physically look younger. I wake up in the mirror, I'm like, whoa, I look so youthful. You have a light inside of you.
I think so.
You permeate, and that light is so much more powerful than any amount of makeup or whatever you can do.
Yeah.
From your
Anti-aging
heart.
treatment.
That people feel that. People resonate with that. That's what people remember. No one fucking remembers what clothing brands you wear, even though that would be nice. But anyway.
At the same time, one should not expect that if you start meditating, I'm gonna look like $1 million.
That's not the reason. That shouldn't
And
be the
that's not
impetus.
why you should be meditating.
That should not be the impetus.
Yeah.
No. What is consciousness?
That's a big question.
Okay,
What is consciousness?
sum it up and just.
I mean, I can't just sum it up. So I think So it's a very abstract.
I want to get all of our opinions on this. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So let's just kind of give a basic summary.
So first of all, I mean, I think that there are different kinds of consciousness.
Yeah.
There's different levels of awareness.
Ooh.
There's nested consciousness within the universe almost, right?
That's cool.
Where there are certain indications that we get that plants are responding to their environment in a way that would indicate that they're somewhat conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Even on the quantum level, there are particle interactions and stuff like that would seem to indicate that there is some level of intelligence underlying the fabric of everything. So does that qualify as consciousness? So what qualifies as consciousness? I mean, certainly human consciousness does, I think. At the very, I don't think anybody would argue that. So consciousness, like everything else, it's a word.
Yeah.
It's
a symbol. It's not the ultimate.
Yeah, we're always trying to explain everything with words. And reality isn't words.
Yeah.
I think that's what meditation does. It shows you what God, for lack of a better word, is through just witnessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't find God in the Bible because God is not in a word. It's in
Right.
It's inside
some kind of experience.
It's in your hands, man.
Well, regardless, I think that in the colloquial understanding of the term consciousness, that nobody would say that humans lack consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might say that oh yeah, bugs, they're not really conscious.
So then
plants,
is awareness
really
the same thing as consciousness, or is that just different words?
I think it depends on who you ask. I mean, I think some people would, synonymize. Is that a word? I think some people would say those words.
Now it is now synonymized.
Synonymize.
Let's synonymize them.
Yeah.
So is consciousness synonymized? I know. Synonymous with intelligence, because for example, coral doesn't have a brain, but they're all synced up and they all lay their eggs at the same time when the moon is right or something like that.
Yeah.
So do you want to give your thoughts on
I
that?
wouldn't say so. Again, this is very personal opinion type stuff we're talking about.
No, that's totally fine. There's no rules.
No rules. All right, fucking, I'm out of here. Yeah, so I mean, I think that again, they're just different types of consciousness, and yeah, I wouldn't say that something that has no intelligence or no sen- I think there's a difference between sentience and consciousness.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, there are beings that I would say are not necessarily self-aware. They're not aware that they are a conscious thing, like
Right.
Or in charge of their own.
They're not aware of
self,
awareness.
Yeah.
But they are, like ants are like, like
They're on the program.
but there's still a consciousness there. There's still there's some kind of, at least externally it seems to be, but there is some kind of experience going on there.
Yeah.
Some kind of response,
Yeah, I think consciousness just is. Whatever word you want to put on it, I think consciousness just is. It wants to know itself. And for certain animals, like, humans, we've become aware of our consciousness, so we're intelligent. Does that make sense?
Agree with that. Yeah.
What do you think about all that?
I think it's the universe trying to experience itself, right? In terms of
And how did we become so intelligent? Did aliens come down and upgrade us, or do we eat mushrooms, or was it a genetic error, or is it
all the above,
an anomaly?
All of those things probably happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said that there's nests of consciousness in the universe, and I hadn't really thought about that. So is AI a form of consciousness, or is it just a tool or a program, or what do you think about that? Is it can it become sentient?
I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that question.
Personal theory.
Oh man, we're getting into some philosophical rabbit holes here. Is AI conscious? I don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just don't know. I don't know if we will ever know.
Yeah.
That's the thing I think that is challenging about AI is we can very easily imagine, or we don't even have to imagine it. We're already almost there. Mm-hmm. We're at the point now where we're developing AI technology that is powerful enough that when you interact with it, you won't be able to tell whether it's conscious or not.
It's going to mimic us
because it's so convincing, that it just it will be indistinguishable. You know what I mean? You throw that thing in an Android, give it a face, let it allow it to interact with human beings and just answer questions and talk and whatever, and
you won't know the difference.
I think I mean we're too simple. I think to really be able to distinguish. I think that kind of computer intelligence will be soon sophisticated enough that it
won't need us anymore. That's what I worry about.
It'll just surpass our ability to tell whether it's conscious or not. It'll surpass our level of comprehension.
That's the only fear I feel. If it sees humanity as a threat, it will seek to eliminate us.
That's what. Yeah, I mean, that's what when you hear Elon Musk talking about, we need to be careful about this. Or maybe we should just stop.
Hey, maybe I'm from Mars, and this is what happened on our planet. And yikes! We're doing it again.
That's kind of what he's talking about, though, right? It's just we should make sure that we're. Was it Asimov's 4? Obeying Asimov's 4 laws of robotics. There's those 4 laws of robotics that basically there's one always supersedes the next one kind of thing. If there's rule 1 and then rule 2, as long as it doesn't conflict with rule 1, rule 2. Rule 1 was something along the lines of a machine should never harm human beings.
Right.
And then the next one was a machine should serve human beings.
So these would be programmed into.
Any AI should be programmed very very specifically. So I mean the problematic thing is it gets so complicated. Some of this code it's so ridiculously complicated that how do we ever really guarantee that one of these AIs
just doesn't learn to program and
it's not just going to reprogram itself, hack into itself and be hey, well, I'm turning these rules off.
Exactly.
Fuck this. Yeah, I'm way better than all this shit. I'm just going to take these humans down.
Yeah.
I don't. Why would they?
I have built my own internet.
Why would they see us as a threat?
I don't know.
Why would they want to destroy us?
Because we suck.
We made them. We obviously don't suck that much. If we can make.
No,
them,
I don't actually think we suck.
We're their gods. We built them.
I don't know. They might think that though. That's the thing. I don't.
But would you want to kill your god?
Would
you want to destroy your creator?
Lucifer did.
Maybe. If I'm a psychopathic, non-emotional robot machine person.
I've turned my emotional programming off. Destroy all humans.
that's the thing,
I've turned
they're
my
not
empathy
really
down to
emotions.
negative 5,000 million.
That'd be useful. Not really. That'd be
No, it'd be
awful.
terrible.
That'd be horrible.
For
Might
us, it
come
would
in handy
be
sometimes.
to not be
So
empathetic.
just turn it off for a minute, you know, it's just
Would
overwhelming.
you rather be psychopathic?
No, I
No.
wouldn't.
I'd
but
rather feel-
There are times when it's
painful.
hard to feel.
It's hard,
so
yeah,
much,
it's hard, yeah.
So
Consciousness is hard.
What is life?
What is life?
No, seriously. Like, what is life, Charlotte? What is it?
simulation.
Do you feel like that?
Sometimes it's a game. I think it's a game.
I think if you treat it like a game, it becomes a lot
It's
more
fun. It's-
Like,
yeah.
if you realize that this isn't, compared to an eternity, this is a short little jaunt into the human realm.
Yeah.
You're learning some lessons. For me, I feel like I reincarnated. Maybe I'm new to this planet. I feel like I'm a little baby, but I've lived on other planets where I seem to have a lot more power. And I feel like I'm here, like, playing out things and learning and
Yeah.
processing karma. And, like, maybe that's just my perception. I don't know if it's 100% true, but I really do feel that we're here learning. Like, it's a school. Do you feel like that at all?
This is the answer to the question: what is life?
What is life?
Is life a lesson? Is life Jedi
like
training?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it a
kinda
series
feel
of
like that,
lessons,
sure.
right?
Sure. I mean, life is a lot of things other than that, too.
Yeah.
Of course.
You know?
I mean, life is learning how to love, learning that you are loved.
But aren't those all lessons?
Yeah, we're still back in the realm of lessons here.
But that's what it is. It's just all these lessons teaching you things and teaching us how to grow.
I mean, why do
and
we do things? We
better
want to
and-
know. Consciousness wants to know itself. I feel like, I don't know if the Big Bang happened, like maybe it did or whatever, but beyond that, I feel like consciousness just splits itself into parts to know itself. Like, it wants to see itself through reflections to know itself.
Yeah.
And so when you're mad at people, you're just mad at yourself. Like,
We're all one.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to remember that and integrate that in your
Yeah.
daily life when you
It
want to
is.
punch someone in the face, but,
Yeah.
you know.
That's a really interesting way to view consciousness, as being like a process of dividing and dissecting, like the universe. I've long thought of the universe as being a thing that is, like, if you can think of like what would be the verb form of consciousness, like the universe is consciousnessing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
It does this thing,
yeah.
and it, like, at least through us, it is doing this thing. There's this process going on, and that does almost seem to be a thing that is dividing and dissecting and whatever. Like, and that's what Vipassana is about too. Actually, it's like it's really all about, like, you get further and further into yourself and divide and dissect, like, all the little aspects of your experience and
Yeah.
see that all those things, like, oh, okay, so this pain, oh, well, that's not me. You know, like, okay, this reaction, that's not me.
Like, it's just
Like,
happening. It's
just
just
like this process, like, there's all these other things going on. This phenomena, this mind body phenomenon. Like, every little experience that you have is like you kind of become like a little bit dissociated from it, not in a way that's like scary or negative.
in a healthy way.
Yeah, just like
Hopefully.
basically, yeah. I mean, like, I think some people do try to push too hard. Yeah. Meditation is like, it's a very useful tool. It can be a thing that if you're craving, if you're doing it out of a base of craving, if you're trying to get somewhere with it.
Yeah, when I was younger, that's what I did. I'm like, I'm going to become super powerful and psychic.
Yeah, well, that can be dangerous.
It was dangerous. I
That
had
can
like
be
this
dangerous.
awakening and I couldn't ground myself. And I was like, yeah.
I think I remember hearing, I don't know how true this is, but I remember hearing about someone who died. Or there was
Meditation.
I mean, there
was
are
some-
monks who die.
There was someone who had been to a meditation retreat and they ended up having some kind of psychotic episode
Probably
That happens
or something.
occasionally.
Yeah.
That happens occasionally. Yeah, I've heard of it on like long courses and
Yeah.
stuff where people are like, they're going for like 30 days or whatever. But usually it's like, from my understanding anyways, so I actually I have met one person who has had this kind of experience. And from hearing their story, it sounded to me like it's, the reason it happened to them anyways was because they were not like really practicing the way that they were instructed. They weren't really like just observing and just like letting, they were trying to like force their thoughts away, like, I'm just going to shut my thoughts down and quiet my mind, like forcefully.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Instead of observing.
yeah, and like, they're just trying to
Control.
get deeper,
Right.
like out of craving, right? Like, I'm going deeper.
I'm going into the hell realm.
And then they legit did.
And they just
They
flipped.
brought the hell out of themselves, and they didn't flip, but weird stuff started happening,
Yeah.
and they had to leave. And
So
it
even
wasn't-
meditation
it was
in moderation.
Yeah, everything in moderation, man. Absolutely, absolutely. It's a middle path, is what they say.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't like a lot of people aren't ready for it even in the first place. You know, like I think that if you were to try to get like a a bunch of people on East Hastings or like the hardcore drugs and stuff like that and throw them into a meditation center for 10 days,
Yeah.
it's probably not going to be helpful
No.
for them.
Mm.
You know, that might not have the effect that you.
Yeah.
You got to be ready for this stuff. You
Yeah.
know, like whatever it is.
It takes a lot of courage,
Some
honestly,
people-
to actually go inside yourself and say, hey, I'm responsible for the things
Yeah.
that I'm projecting out onto this
Yeah.
reality.
It's
Like,
an
if no one
experience
else
in my world.
is causing me pain, I'm choosing to react to them because I can't deal with my own shit. Like, often.
Yeah. Even just like doing the 10 minutes thing, you know, it's like I've got friends that sometimes they come to me and they're like, yeah, I've been meditating 10 minutes a day for a few weeks, or and it's like, you know, and they kind of downplay it. Like, it's I've only been doing it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it's like, whatever, man, like you're doing 10 minutes meditation every day, like you have an everyday
builds up.
practice. That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how many people do that out of like all of humanity, like have a 10-minute a day practice? You know, like it's a small number.
I
I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not a lot.
I find it's just so helpful for like just repetitive thoughts, or like, you know, you go throughout your life and you're just thinking so many thoughts that aren't even useful. They're just
there's just a constant
again and
stream
again
of
and
thoughts
again and again.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
what kind of makes you old. You
Yeah.
think the same thoughts over and over again. Meditation just gives you a chance to stop, and then new neural
Break away.
pathways are like formed. And
Yeah.
I find that like I'm less OCD, I'm less obsessive about things.
I'm less anxious. I have less panic.
It's almost like I'm connected to what I truly am, which feels complete, right? Beyond this temporary form and beyond the passing emotions, I feel like, okay, I'm not really an I'm you know, I'm here. I am, and I'm in a body, and I don't have to do anything in order to be complete because I am complete. So that just gives me this sense of like, I've already made it. I've already achieved everything.
Yeah.
Now I can just enjoy my life, and I don't have to be seeking to become something. I already am something.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's pretty easy to understand.
Yeah.
Again, intellectually.
Yeah.
All this stuff is very easy to grasp intellectually. It makes sense to most people, I think,
Yeah.
when you start getting into these ideas of like, okay, so what is I?
Yeah.
You know, like think about it. Like what is that? You know, like you have this. Is it your consciousness? Like I took a class in university when I was studying philosophy. That it was probably my favorite philosophy class. I think is on personhood. Basically, it's called personal ontology. So ontology is a word meaning like. This is like the sort of the lexicon, the set of words that you use to describe something. So it's like, okay, so what words do we use to describe personhood? What is
Okay.
that? What is that concept basically is what it's asking. And, you know, we go through, there's like 2 or 3 books that we read through, and each one was just like kind of like every chapter was just like a different theory. Right? So it was a very like rapid fire kind of class where it was like there was a lot of different ideas, but like, you know, okay, maybe like a person is like the animal body, right? A person is their brain. A person is their series of memories, you know, conscious memories. A person is this, a person is that. All these different ideas. Every single one of them breaks the fuck down.
Yeah.
When you really start asking questions about it, and like, you know, okay, well, like put like when you run it through thought experiments, like so say you want to think that, okay, well, a person really is like it's the human brain that makes a person, and you know, if you were to take that brain out and put it in something else, that person still persists. They're still there. You know, as long as they have a way to like interact with other people, like you'll see that easily. And then it's like, okay, so say that's the brain. What if somebody has a stroke and like, you know, part of their brain goes offline, but they're still kind of there, like, or are they? You know, like, are they there? Are they not? Or like, you know.
So it's almost like consciousness is permeating the body. It's in the brain, but it's also just kind of flowing.
Well, I just don't think that personhood is anywhere to be found. Really?
Like this is all just an illusion, and this is a hallucination, and we're just walking around in the mind of God.
I'm not saying that reality isn't real. I just don't think, like, I think that the ego is like a false perception, right? Like that, again, it's another common conception
that we're all separate and that we're all kind of
that you are this separate
there is an
being.
I.
Like I am a mother,
like, what is
and I am this, and it's like, well, no, these are just things that you're doing, and you're just you're just experiencing these things. This doesn't make you, like the more that you enforce this separate identity, the more that separate identity needs to attack other people and separate itself from other people to feel secure. So meditation breaks that down, and you don't feel any reason to get Botox to make yourself better than other people anymore.
Or maybe you do.
Or maybe you do.
That's fine.
Yeah,
As long as you're meditating.
Yeah.
You're working your
We'll
way
see how
out.
I feel like 10 years from now when I'm like looking at
I have my
Oh,
days.
no.
I have my days where I'm like, oh.
I watch stupid reality shows and they're like, I'm
Just
so
don't watch reality shows.
I don't know, I enjoy them.
Probably not great for your mental diet.
No.
But yeah, so what I was saying is that like the this concept of I, this like personhood, like there's when you really start looking at it, when you really start digging into it, it's just kind of not there.
Yeah,
It's
like you're just
like
this force.
When you do it intellectually, like through if you again study all this stuff in philosophy, it's like there's always problems.
Yeah,
there's always problems with like every theory of what it is. So like really like colloquially, when you say a person, like that person, you point at somebody, right? That's fine, right? That works.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that, and like that is an apparent truth. There's truth in that. To say that there's persons and people and I and you and all that kind of stuff. Like that's all part of reality. But like you start digging into it further, and it's like, okay, like what does that mean though? Like if a person gets their consciousness transferred to a computer, did that first person die and now there's another person?
Is the person the I, or is the computer consciousness?
And is that computer consciousness there's all these issues all the time, and it's kind of like even just that, like intellectually, like you start to realize that the concept of I and personhood and ego and whatever, like all that kind of stuff sort of breaks down. But when you're doing meditation, it's a totally different thing, right? Like again, it's relatively easy to understand that a lot of this stuff intellectually, I think, just that like, like we're all here and just learning things and interacting with the world, and we are the universe, like being conscious of itself and blah 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 blah. Great. But like what does any of that understanding do if you're still caught up in all these cycles of misery and
the drama of everyday life?
And not breaking free.
You're not initiating yourself into anything.
Yeah.
You're just mentally talking about it, right?
Yeah, and be like, if you really want to understand, what that means for there to be no I, no ego, like the only way to do that, I think, is to experience it. To just experience, like go inside, look at what's inside everything. Just keep going further, deeper. And this is a process that doesn't happen quickly either. Like it's a long path, and like I'm only just like starting on it. Again, that's why I keep on saying like I don't know how qualified I am to talk about all this stuff. Like I know people that like they're basically they've more or less been living the life of a monk for 50-60 years and this kind of thing, and like like you talk to them about their practice, or like sometimes you go to an assistant teacher. I keep saying the word AT. I think I've said that a few times. Okay. Assistant teacher, so that everybody knows what the hell that means. An assistant teacher in Vipassana, you go to one of them and ask them questions about your practice, and like they know answers to things because they've experienced more of all this stuff, and even they are like they're still just like regular people. They're not enlightened, and they won't say that they're nobody like really talks about where they are on the path. And I don't know that there are really very many really developed people on Earth anymore. There was some. I think there might still be a few arahants around. An arahant is somebody who has liberated themselves of like a high level of their sankharas, their aversions and cravings. I can't remember if it means that they've gotten rid of all of them or not. But yeah, there's sort of like different stages that the Buddha talked about. There's this arahanthood, and then which is like I think a fully liberated person, and then there's like full enlightenment, which is like even a step further. So you can be fully enlightened, and then like within that space, there's also like different types of Buddhas. I think that there's like they're the ones that will sort of spread the teaching, and then ones that don't. And I don't know.
Do you think the ego is useful for anything? Like personally, I feel like it protects us and it kind of drives us forward. Is there a use for it, right? For me, like meditation isn't about like releasing myself fully from the ego. It's about watching it and being like, oh, this is a little child and I can kind of like see it for what it is. And you know what I mean?
I mean, it's up to you how far you want to go.
Yeah.
right?
Is the ego useful though to humanity?
That's a very good question. I haven't really thought about it. Like, is the ego useful? I think that it is. Not that it is useful. That it just exists. It's a part of nature.
Yeah.
It's a part of this process that's happening in the universe. And in as much as that process is going on, like I guess yes, it's useful, or it serves a purpose. It is.
Well, knowing that you're a separate person in reality enables you to not go into traffic and get hit, right? It's like, oh, I have to protect my person.
Yeah, having some level of like people often say that like fear is very useful. Like fear is a good thing, and we should have fear. And
I mean, I think there's healthy fear, and then there's unhealthy fear that's caused from the mind and overthinking, right? Like
yeah. Well, that's like anxiety. It's like a overabundance. But like if you're climbing a mountain, like free solo climbing or whatever, right? Like it's probably there's a certain amount of fear that keeps you from just letting go.
Yeah.
Right. So it's self-preserving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in the sense that anything serves a purpose. Again, purpose just being a word.
Again, purpose just being a word.
We just throw this around as if it has any meaning outside of our experience or whatever. But yeah, so it serves a purpose. Sure, the ego serves a purpose. It's there, and I've often kind of thought that it's almost like a necessary component of it's like you can't have one without the other. You can't have liberation without the ego.
Yeah.
You can't have it's like every negativity that I have in my life that I have to deal with is there to teach me to not have those negativities.
Right.
Is there to guide me through the process of just and I don't know if the ultimate goal of all this that's going on in the universe is for all of us to just eventually become liberated. Life after life, all consciousness just passes through this stream of samsara, I guess, and eventually ends up at the end. I don't know if that's how it works or what happens exactly, but it sort of feels that way a little bit to me. It feels like everybody's on a path, and even if things get really rough for a while, there's still kind of some sense of progress. Maybe not constant improvement, but you go through an experience, and then that thing just kind of moves you in a direction that
forward movement.
Yeah.
I always remind myself the universe at its core is friendly. It wants to learn, it wants to grow. It's benevolent. It's a benevolent force. So there's nothing really to be afraid of when you're going through all these hardships. You're just learning. You're learning about yourself through contrast, and it's hard. But if you just go inside, things happen for a reason. You're doing this to yourself for some reason. You're getting into these situations because you want to grow. Obviously, there's some chaos. Not everything's. Well, actually, what do you think about that? What do you believe about destiny? Do you believe in a destiny, or do you choose your own destiny? What are your thoughts on that, Charlotte?
I don't think that there's any, I don't think that we each have one specific destiny or one specific fate. I think that certain experiences were maybe destined to go through, but they can play out in different ways depending on kind of where you're at in your life and what you need to learn and grow at that time.
Yeah, I feel like it's both. I feel like maybe we choose certain things. Maybe we know we're going to meet a certain person, but ultimately we have free choice here. We can choose to flow with the river or just swim upstream complaining about life the whole time. What are your thoughts, Jeremy?
I have many thoughts. Which thoughts would you like? I will present them to you
What are your general
on a platter.
What are your general thoughts? And for the viewers on destiny, or stop the viewers, the listeners, maybe viewers eventually, on destiny, do you think anything's predetermined? Do you think everything's chaotic? Do you think there's a grand plan here?
So, yeah, when I'm meditating and I'm watching my thoughts come and go, and my desires and sort of my motivations just and then, they bubble in and out of existence almost, right? When you start seeing stuff like that just happen on its own, it gets a little bit more difficult not to think of things deterministically, where it's just it was just this ongoing thing that's happening, this this stream of cause and effect that's just carrying us along. But I mean, it also still, I think, occurs to me that it's not just that. I don't think it's that simple, and it's hard to wrap your head around a conception of the universe wherein there's no choice. There's no like all the choices that you make are just like it's just a background process going on. You don't like you think that you're making this choice, but that's a perception.
It's like your higher self controlling your video game character from above.
Yeah, like this sort of thing, right? So I don't know. I think that for me, I kind of believe in like it was actually a really great paper that's titled this. It's called Karma and Chaos. So I kind of believe in karma and chaos. Like I think that there is a
That'd be a good title.
Good title for this?
Yeah.
Yeah. You could. Yeah, you could use that. Yeah, so it's basically that there is like a sort of set of guiding principles, or there is like a cause and effect. You know, there is like a bit of that billiard balls bouncing around on each other aspect to the universe, but there is a certain aspect of chaos to it as well. There is a certain like, you know, like you may take an action and somebody else may take that same action and you don't necessarily get the same results out of it. And yeah, and like, you know, like there's even if there are processes going on in your subconscious mind that kind of not totally dictate but sort of partially determine your choices, you know, there is still that moment of like this way or that way kind of thing, right? Like there is like a, you know, there's something going on where you're going one way or the other, you know, that I don't think is deterministic per se. Although I do one idea that I do really like is this is like one of my favorite things by Alan Watts. It's just like this. I guess it's not by him, but like there was an audiobook that I listened to, or like an audio lecture series I listened to by him that had this one excerpt. There's like a 7-minute thing. I think you can actually look it up on YouTube. I'm not sure what I'd tell people to search anymore, but basically he talks about this idea of like, you know, what if you imagine you had the ability to dream any dream you want every time you go to bed and have like a full life.
I've heard this one.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it.
Like dream a full like 75 years of life every time you close your eyes. Yeah, and you just come out of it and then you go and do it again and do it again and do it again, and you could just keep doing that like infinitely, right?
Yeah.
You just have this ability to like live whatever life you want.
That's nuts.
You would go through. So if you were that kind of consciousness, you would go through all these different realities, all these different lives, and all these different possibilities you experience, every kind of pleasure, every kind of pain, every kind of, you know, and then ultimately, if you're exhausting every possible option, eventually you would dream the dream that you are living now.
Wow.
And so like kind of the idea behind that is perhaps anyways, you know, there is like a higher consciousness that is
dreaming
just like
you into existence.
That is just like choosing all these things.
Yeah.
You know, like I kind of like the idea that like, you know, I at least like to play with it. The idea that like maybe I wanted this, maybe I chose this.
Oh, I feel like I totally did.
Yeah.
And it's easy to play with that idea, easy to mess around with it when everything's like good and fine and whatever. When you're going through the shit, when you're passing through the gauntlet of life, and you know things are really tough, to remind yourself like, well, you know, like maybe I chose this.
Yeah. I remember when I was like 17 and I was like screaming in the bath, being like, I want to kill myself. Why did you put me here, God? Like that, that did not seem like I had chosen to be here. But now looking back,
It doesn't
I'm
sound
like,
very equanimous.
No, it wasn't.
People get stuck in that and they play the victim and they refuse to acknowledge that maybe they did choose what's happening.
I feel like all that pain I went through made me very wise. It made me healer. It made me able to help people, right? And so now I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful for all of that suffering because now
because you learned the lessons. You took the lessons from those situations and you were able to learn from it. A lot of people don't. They refuse to face it.
I think a lot of our choices do come from the subconscious mind, though. I don't think we're very aware of why we want things. And then meditation, we go into it and we're like, I didn't know that was there. That's why I want that. You know what I mean? Like this. Does anybody have any thoughts on the subconscious mind and how to deal with it, or like why?
Yeah, so I mean, like there's that like sort of unconscious traps. Like, oh, there's these things going on, you don't know about them, and you better be careful because they're like controlling you, whatever. That shit's scary, right? That's like a scary way to think of the subconscious mind. And it's not impossible to get in touch with your subconscious mind either. So it's definitely not something that I think that you should fear. You know, like it can be uncomfortable, you know, like especially if you're doing that dive, right? So one of the really interesting aspects of the meditation practice that I do is this idea of the breath being a bridge or like a gateway between your conscious and unconscious mind, because it is both. When you're not thinking about it, when you're not controlling it, the breath is regulated by
Automatic,
the
right?
subconscious mind.
Okay.
But your conscious mind is in touch with it as well, because you can change the.
So it's kind of
you
a
can
way
regulate
to
your breath.
bridge them.
Well, so basically what you do is like you just focus your conscious mind on the natural flow of the breath without trying to control it. And so
Which is
you're
hard.
so
Yeah, that is really hard.
So
I
it
find
is
when people
very
tell
hard.
me like breathe, I'm like, I start getting anxious. I'm like, what do you mean breathe? I'm like, breathing? I'm like, my stomach's big. Okay, ow, that hurts. Yeah, it becomes really hard. The act of breathing becomes really hard when you're focusing on breathing, and then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I can just breathe.
you get used to it. You get used to it.
You get used to breathing eventually.
I mean, a part of that, well, you get used to focusing on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I think a part of that is also just like maybe your anxiety is like spiking because as soon as you start focusing on your breath, you are coming into contact with your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of why that happens to people. I mean, like, I don't know, but it definitely seems like that. It definitely seems like there is this bridge, and then if you just watch your breath, then the patterns of the subconscious mind and your underlying thought patterns and emotional patterns and whatever, they will start to present themselves along with you become more aware of your sensations and stuff as well, because that's the subconscious mind is the thing that's always in touch with the sensations and always
Right.
reacting to them.
Right.
That's interesting to think about.
What is that saying? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, yeah,
And
that's pretty accurate.
So meditation.
Yeah, and it's what drives us, I think, a lot of the time.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
100%.
It's one of our hashtags.
That's
100%.
our tag.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, but like, so my major revelation from this is that through the act of surrender, you actually gain more control. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you gain the ability to not react to something, to
Which
watch yourself and be like, oh, okay, I have more power just by.
Because you're in control of the situation. You're in
Well, you
control
just-
of situations more because you're not reacting to them.
You gain awareness, and that awareness allows you to elect your own response.
Right.
So
what
if
you're
you
aware of.
decide, like, I want to take over the world, you'd be able to do it in a way that is grounded.
Yeah, totally.
Subconsciously working towards world
Okay.
domination.
I have something to talk about too, which was, the experiment where they put a particle or a wave through a little slot, and depending on the people
The observer.
watching
Yeah,
it,
the observer
it
paradox.
changes into the wave or a particle, like, so we can actually affect our physical surroundings. Isn't that magical and insane? Like, that our consciousness, by looking at things, we change it,
Well, I mean,
and by focusing on it.
there like the ideological philosophy sort of branch would say that, like, the world of ideas, the world of like the conscious mind is the primary thing. So there's like a whole I mean, and I guess it's probably not as common or popular anymore as it used to be, but there's this whole like field of philosophy that I studied a bit anyways. I didn't really go that far down that route, but that just talks about like this supposed like objective reality that's out there. No, like it doesn't, like consciousness is primary,
Right.
and like everything kind of
And we're kind of
comes through that.
creating it.
Subjective.
yeah, it's just like it's sort of happening as like almost as like an interdependent relationship to consciousness. Like the outside world and the inside world are two sides of the same coin kind of thing. So like all of it depends on your being conscious.
So if I wasn't looking at the forest, would it just dematerialize? And then, like,
well, yeah, pretty much.
like in the simulation, it's
Totally.
like where all the data is going to the AI system. Reroute.
Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever been driving down the road or something like that, and you're like, I wonder if anything past what I can see right now
It's just not
is just like not
materialized.
there in the, like it's just rendering as I'm like,
Yeah, I
as
thought
I'm
about
coming
that.
up
As I'm
to it.
walking
I
down
wonder
the
about
street.
that.
It just
Yeah.
generates like a video game.
Yeah.
I mean, like, no, probably not. It's
No.
not. I don't think
We
it's
don't-
that simple. I don't think it's that simple.
We wouldn't
Especially
know.
because I mean, there are those who are solipsists out in the world, I'm sure, who would disagree with me, but I do think that there are multiple consciousnesses. That there's.
I think all of our consciousnesses are valid, and we're this great tapestry, like just interacting and creating all together, and it's just fucking insane. Like,
Yeah.
Anything you want to share, Jeremy, personally from your practice, or anything that maybe a type of advice for people who are looking to get into meditation, who are maybe, a little nervous about it, or maybe they tried it and they thought, oh, this is too hard. Is there any kind of advice from your heart that you could, or your experience that you could give to someone out there listening who maybe, is just struggling a bit and wants to get into it for the first time, or maybe for the 10th time, whatever?
Yeah, do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Do it.
Just do it.
Do it up.
And don't judge yourself either.
Yeah, just keep trying. Keep
Yeah,
going
just
with it.
put
Don't give up. And like you were saying, 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day.
2 minutes a day.
2 minutes a day doesn't take a lot.
Like if you can remember to be aware of a single breath every so often.
Yeah.
Like throughout your day when you're at work or whatever.
Yeah.
Like any little bit of awareness is more awareness than you would have otherwise had.
Yeah.
That's the thing to remember, and to not put too much. Like I have a really bad habit of putting pressure on myself. Like one of the sort of unconscious patterns that I've found in myself, especially when I'm like sitting a course. When I'm sitting a course, like I'll be like, trying to maintain my awareness like throughout the entire 10 days. And, because they tell you kind of like, this is the ultimate aim. This is, like continuous awareness. Continuity is the secret of success, they say. Continuity is the secret of success.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, it's true. But, so you try to do that, but like, you just can't really. You can't expect that of yourself. So like I'll find myself like I'll be like walking during break period over. I'm walking around and I'm trying to like stay focused on my breath and my sensations and all. My mind will wander. And then in the moment when I realize that my mind has wandered, there's this little bit of like aversion of like upsetness and
punishing.
like God damn it, Jeremy, like
focus,
and like get back to it, and it's like that's not helpful though.
No.
And so I've actually become more observant of that as well, and that is the thing that I've now noticed is starting to diminish, where like I don't have that such a strong reaction to like, oh, I lost my awareness. Like whatever, you lost your awareness. Guess what? Now you're aware that you lost your awareness.
Yeah.
You
it's interesting. It's
tap
like
back into
layers that you're kind of going.
It's like you're an onion peeling
Yeah.
back the layers of trauma and abuse and pain and human suffering to get to the core of beauty and eternal
there's a bunch of different analogies that are pretty good. There's like like the little toys that you wind up.
Oh, yeah.
It's like all of us are just like we're just winding
or the dolls.
Those dolls. But like so this toy you don't have to do anything. You just stop winding it.
Right.
Or like it's like a rope that you're like, or like a towel that you're twisting it, and tightening it. You just let go, and it unravels on its own.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. So when I say just do it, I guess just be it.
Just be it. Less is more, right? Surrender.
Yeah, as hard as that is, I mean, it's very simple. It's all very simple, but very difficult to do.
Very simple to understand.
Very simple to understand, very difficult to do. Yeah. And, like we're all in this together as well, right? Like you don't have to feel like, this process, if you are trying to meditate or, like you're thinking about trying to meditate and you can't, like, it's just so daunting and whatever. I mean, like maybe one of the things you can do is like reach out to a group or
go to a class,
start a mindfulness group or whatever, it's really helpful to have.
I feel like when you're in the presence of other meditators, the energy, like the good energy just gets stronger too. And it's kind of
makes
easier
a huge difference.
Yeah, like scientifically, like you kind of, I've heard that it,
if you go
to
this is the kind of thing that I actually like previously, like my old self, my 10 years previous self would have been completely skeptical of like any of this sort of thing that I'm about to say. But when you go to a Dhamma center, like especially when you have like a daily practice and you're meditating a lot, like all the time, like you just like continually like two hours a day or whatever, and you're doing that at home, like in the city, in an environment that's like maybe not that conducive to meditation. Like there could be lots of noise or like people walking around, technology, like who knows, radio waves probably don't help. But
buy this new clothes, Botox. They're just in the airwaves.
There's just like ads like in your brain.
There is. It's like,
but yeah, so when you go from that to like sitting at a meditation center or even just like in a group, like in somebody's living room, but like with like 10 other people who are all meditating, I shouldn't say you, I should say I have really noticed the difference in like my level of focus and it's not just like I'm here now with these people and I'm here to do this thing, so I you know, like I have to focus more, and so you're more determined. It's not just like
it's like an energetically palpable thing.
Yeah, it's something else, man. It is. There's something going on there that I don't quite understand yet, but there's something going on there that like makes meditating with like there's a vibrational sort of quality
into something
to like when you're in a place where everybody is just doing this process of observation.
Imagine
you just kind of all get aligned with one another or something like that. Like you're on the same frequency. I swear, it's crazy.
Imagine if we all just decided to meditate instead of go to war. Like what kind of world would we live in? You know what I mean? Like we're here on this planet, and then all of a sudden we're put in the system. We have to basically pay for things that could be free. We're just locked in this system. What if we all just meditated and decided to like grow our own food and live on the beach? Wouldn't that be so much better?
I think we
there are places there are places where there's been, you know, some pretty like successful and sizable experiments.
Community. There's one in India like this Oroville, yeah. But you have to give up your passport, that you have to become that citizen, basically. Yeah, sure. Which is, I mean, if that's your decision, sacrifice. There's no money there. Everyone's just contributing. Like there are ways to live like that and just live in harmony with the earth. But we're greedy.
Yeah, we want more than just, you know, like, so the thing is like, and some people find that very attractive, right? The idea of like, okay, well, I can live in this community where there's no money and, you know, like it's pretty simple life. Like I only have to put in like 4 hours of work a day, and the rest of the time I just get to be around all these beautiful, wonderful people and spend my time with human beings, and I can play music and I can do hobbies and whatever, like, and like, you know, all that's great. You know, some people are fine with that. Yeah. You know, some people would say that that's called settling, and that, you know, that is bullshit, and you should like go out and like fucking get yourself a yacht already, because what the hell are you doing with your life?
Or maybe people's trajectory is to bring in technology and stuff, and, you know, you need money for that and everything. Well, you don't need money, but we're in a system where people need to get paid to do the job, right? So
yeah. There's some value in that too, right? Like maybe perhaps I guess inevitably, ultimately, the human race will only be perpetuated by the development of technology, right? Like we can't really just stay here on this planet forever, right? Like the planet will, if everything passes, the planet will pass.
I mean, how long? Well,
eventually, yeah.
The planet will pass.
Yeah. The planet will die eventually, yeah. The sun will burst into flames.
In billions of years.
Yeah, well, we got to think about it.
Well, we don't. I mean, people now don't need to think about that, right? I don't think that needs to be a focus of ours, worrying about what's going to happen to the planet in billions of years.
I mean, we're overpopulated. I think we should get out, and get back to the good stuff.
We should focus on making the world a better place.
Maybe focusing on healing our problems on Earth first. Yeah.
I think that is that's what I would say.
Before we spread them out in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Like some cancer, some parasite.
Right now, we don't really need to be that concerned about.
No.
Yeah.
Trying to get off the planet and trying to develop.
Our children are starving.
Yeah.
People are dying of diseases that could be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much that's happening in the world that like really is avoidable, and it's really only like I always think of the primary problem of humanity being greed. I mean, it's you could probably, you know, come up with like 100 other single word, you know, focuses to like, okay, well, really it's this or really it's that. But to me, it's always been like, you know, whenever you chase down a problem, it's like, why is this happening? Oh, because this company needed to do this. So
it comes down to greed, right?
A lot of the time. Yeah. A lot of the time, it's like a follow the money kind of situation.
And power.
I feel like then again that goes back to the ego. Like I'm the separate being, and I need to fill myself with things in order to be whole. If we all just meditated, we would realize we already have what we need. We have love. We have shelter for the most part. We have food. We're complete. You know, like we don't need 10 boats to be happy. We don't need $10 billion to be happy. That's nice, but
there is actually, you know, like when it comes down to it, I think there's very little that people would need to be happy. If the thing is, like, I think you have to develop yourself spiritually to
appreciate.
You have to be at a pretty high level in order to actually feel that happiness, right?
And to feel it when ads are being thrown in your face.
Sure. But I'm saying, like, hypothetically, like if we lived in a world where that wasn't already going on, still I think there would be people who are like, they're they're not there yet, right? They're not like in a place where they can just and everybody, I think, like all of like the three of us in this room right now, none of us are in a place where we can just completely neglect all of our desires and cravings and whatever. Like we all have, like I buy like board games all the time.
Yeah.
Like
that's your addiction.
That's my addiction.
That's our wine.
Yeah, I love wine.
But yeah, there's things that we probably don't need. That we probably
we enjoy them. They bring something into our lives.
If we had a higher level of equanimity, if we were like more spiritually developed and further along the path, and blah 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 blah,
and
this
not on this
stuff,
planet.
then maybe not on this planet. Then there's a good chance that we just like, okay, well, I genuinely don't have a desire for that thing. I feel like totally at peace. I feel totally sated. But most people are not there, and so that's just where we are. You know? And that's okay.
I've learned to stop judging myself for imbibing in human things. Like I think it's more about moderation and balance. That's my path, at least. Like enjoy your life. Don't punish yourself if you choose to, buy a brand new pair of shoes for $1,000. Like enjoy those shoes, but realize that those pair of shoes isn't going to make you any better, right? It's just something you're enjoying the physical realm. You're enjoying.
Well, that's the thing. We are here on the physical realm, and so we should enjoy our bodies and the things that we have. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, we were talking about that before too. How the body, like moving into the body is the temple, right? The body is the way to be spiritual. It's the pathway to spirit. So I think, I don't know. A lot of people say like, oh, abstain from things, move away from the body, but
that's actually not even what the Buddha taught, I don't think.
What did he say?
Not so much abstain from, I mean, like there are the precepts, right? Like abstain from stealing, abstain from telling lies, abstain from, all these kind of negative acts, things that come from unwholesome states of mind.
Yeah.
But really it's mostly you're trying to abstain from the unwholesome states of mind. Like, if you're just doing the practice, if you're just observing your sensations, and being equanimous with them, trying not to react to those things, then the rest of that stuff will come naturally, right? Like, there are people, like, do you guys know Rivers Cuomo? I think is his name. Do you know Rivers Cuomo? He's the singer of Weezer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he takes like long courses in Vipassana.
Oh, okay.
So he's like a long time meditator, right? And he's a rock star.
Yeah.
He's a freaking rock star.
Yeah.
And
Why not?
I haven't looked into the guy. I don't know what kind of like wealth situation he has or like what, but I would imagine that lifestyle doesn't necessarily come completely free of any, like other outside of the self type cravings and things like that. But that's okay. Like I think that mostly it's a matter of trying to keep the extremes under wraps. Like you were saying, like buying $1,000 pair of shoes. Sure. I don't know how sustainable the planet is if people are buying all these $1,000 pairs of shoes. Like I have this.
I've never personally done it. I mean, if I could, would I, or would I do something else with the money? Or
I'd buy 10.
I spent thousands of dollars.
Pair of shoes.
I spent thousands of dollars on my art because it's meaningful to me. But still, like it's.
Well, but so something like that though, something like $1,000 pair of shoes. It's like it doesn't cost that much to make that pair of shoes. No. What you're spending the money on is the brand.
Yeah.
Right. You're spending money on like something
it's good
that
quality too. Like you're paying.
I'm sure that the products are good quality. It's just like things like that. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not free of my own sense of like egotistical judgments about stuff going on in the world or whatever. But there are certain things that I do think are like just a little bit over the top, especially now in society. I don't know. $1,000 pair of shoes. Or because like where's the limit, right? It's like somebody could like a company or like say like some basketball player just like decided like I'm going to put out a product and whatever, and there's only going to be 100 of them, and these pairs of shoes are going to be $20,000 each.
Right. Yeah.
$20,000. It's like,
and people would buy them. People, they absolutely would sell.
Celebrities,
probably.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know. If you're just thinking about the interactions that are going on there, like, so you have this human basketball player and these other human like rich kids or whatever, and they're just doing this like money exchange. I kind of like take the alien perspective on it, looking down from above.
Yeah. But the thing is, what's happened there is that those shoes have been assigned value, right?
Yeah. Value is perceived. It's crazy.
It's perceived value based on.
So where are our values then?
Well,
the question.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying those are good values to have, but
that comes down to the education systems, the media. That comes down to that's like a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, I think it's it's just it's a symptom that our values
are not always in the right place.
We've gone pretty far astray from the values that we've been talking about during the course of this podcast, for sure. I think we're like, as a global civilization, we are on the opposite end of the pendulum right now. In a way that is extreme and frightening. And I think we've gotten ourselves into a situation where there are some very tumultuous times ahead of us. I think things are going to continue to get more difficult for the vast majority of people who aren't super rich.
Yeah.
And that's where some mental balance will come in very handy. So
start meditating, everyone.
I would encourage everybody to take this kind of stuff, a little bit more seriously. And, and ultimately what that will do is that we'll end up with a civilization where there will potentially be a value shift.
Right.
And that's really what we need.
That's really what we need. And as AI grows, because it's not going to stop, I foresee that. You definitely need to spend some time just kind of away from that, grounding yourself, spending time in nature, just getting back to what your values are, what your truth is, because it's very easy to just get caught up in it. And
remember before you jump into another simulation that we might already be in one. So just enjoy this one. It's pretty good. The graphics are fucking amazing.
So high def.
Yeah. Wow. You can reach out and touch objects. And
the sense perception is instant. It's on.
It's instant. There's no lag.
No. Well, if you do a lot of drugs, sometimes like the graphics pop in and out.
For me, graphics aren't always the best.
You get some glitches in the Matrix.
See little blue dots, like if you're hungover or something like that. Are you really, really tired? You've stayed up for 3 days.
For 3 days? Does that happen to you?
Not personally.
Never stayed up for 3 days.
2 at least. 1.
And 2. 24 hours is the longest. Yeah.
Wait, like both of you have had blue dot syndrome?
No, I've never had blue dot syndrome, but I've definitely had some.
I used to tell myself that it was angels visiting me, but I think it was just glitches in the Matrix.
Blue circles. I think I've heard of blue circles from Bryn before, like after practicing meditation. He was talking about blue circles. Some kind of blue circle thing.
All right, I'll take it.
All right,
okay, guys.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Jeremy. It was very interesting, and hopefully we can get you back again.
Yeah.
To talk about some other things.
Yeah, sure. Anytime. Well, anytime I'm in town. And
Awesome.
Basically, that's it.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day. Peace
out.
See ya.